ذوقوا فتنتكم هذا الذي كنتم به تستعجلون.
And be told, taste your ordeal. This is what you were seeking to hasten.
11. The word fitna gives two meanings here. 1. Taste this torment of yours. 2. Taste the mischief that you had created and spread in the world. 12. The disbelievers asking, when will the day of retribution be, implied, why is it being delayed? That is, when we have denied it, and have deserved the punishment for belying it, why doesn't it overtake us immediately? That is why when they will be burning in the hellfire, at that time it will be said to them, this is that which you sought to be hastened. This sentence by itself gives the meaning, it was Allah's kindness that He did not seize you immediately on the occurrence of disobedience from you and went on giving you respite after respite to think and understand and mend your ways. But the foolish people that you were, you did not take advantage of the respite but demanded that your doom should be hastened for you instead. Now you may see for yourself what it was that you were seeking to be hastened.
إن المتقين في جنات وعيون.
As for the God-fearing, they shall be in the midst of gardens and fountains.
13. In this context the word muttaqi, the righteous, clearly implies those people who believed in the hereafter when they were given the news of it by the Book of Allah and His Messenger, and adopted the attitude and way of life that they were taught for success in the life hereafter, and refrained from the way about which they had been told that it would involve man in the torment of God.
آخذين ما آتاهم ربهم إنهم كانوا قبل ذلك محسنين.
Joyously receiving what their Lord will have granted them. Verily, they did good works before the coming of this day.
14. Literally, receiving what their Lord has given them. But in this context receiving does not merely mean to receive but to receive joyfully. Obviously, when a person is given something of his own choice and liking, his receiving it will naturally have the meaning of accepting and receiving it joyfully.
كانوا قليلا من الليل ما يهجعون.
They used to sleep but little by night.
وبالأسحار هم يستغفرون.
And would ask forgiveness at dawn.
15. Some commentators have given this meaning of this verse, seldom did it so happen that they spent the whole night sleeping and did not spend a part of it, in the beginning of the night, or in the middle, or in the end of it, awake in the worship of Allah. This commentary with a little variation in wording has been related from Ibn Abbas, Anas bin Malik, Muhammad al-Bakir, Mutrif bin Abdullah, Abu Aliyah, Mujahid, Qatada, Rabi bin Anas and others. According to some other commentators, it means this: they spent the major part of their nights in the worship of Allah Almighty and slept little. This meaning has been reported from Hassan Basri, Anaf bin Qays, and Ibn Shihab Zuri, and the later commentators and translators have preferred this, for this appears to be in better agreement with the words of the verse. And the context. 16. That is, they did not belong to those who spent their nights in immoral and indecent acts, and even then never thought of seeking Allah's forgiveness. On the contrary, they spent a major part of the nights in the worship of Allah and then in the early hours of dawn sought His forgiveness, saying that they did not do full justice to the worship that was due from them. The words Humiastafran also contain an allusion to this, that it befitted and suited them alone that they should exert their utmost in the service of their Lord and then, at the same time, should implore Him humbly for the forgiveness of their errors and shortcomings instead of exulting at and waging proud of their good acts. This could not be the way of those shameless, wicked people who committed sin and behaved arrogantly as well.
وَفِي أَمْوَالِهِمْ حَقٌّ لِلسَّائِلِ وَالْمَحْرُومِ.
And in their wealth there was a rightful share for him who would ask and for the destitute.
17. In other words, on the one hand, they recognized the right of their Lord and duly discharged it. On the other hand, they did not think that whatever Allah had given them, whether little or much, was wholly their own and their children's right, but they had the sense that in their possessions there was the right and share of every such person who was indigent and needy. They did not render help to the people as a charity so as to earn their gratitude for the favor done, but they regarded it as the people's right and discharged it as their own duty. Then this service to mankind was not only confined to those who came to them for seeking help as beggars, but anyone about whom they came to know that he had been left destitute. They would become anxious to render him necessary help of their own accord. There was no orphan who might have been left helpless, no widow who might have had no breadwinner, no disabled person who might be unable to earn a living, no one who might have lost his job, or whose taming might not be sufficing his needs, nobody who might have been hit by a calamity and might be unable to compensate for the loss by himself. In short, there was no needy one whose condition they might have known and yet might have withheld their help when they could have rendered him necessary help and support. The following are the three qualities on the basis of which Allah regards them as the righteous doers of good, and says that these very qualities have made them worthy of paradise. 1. That they believed in the hereafter and refrained from every act and conduct which Allah and His Messenger had stated to be disastrous for the life after death. 2. That they executed their utmost to do full justice to the service of Allah and still sought Allah's forgiveness instead of exulting at their acts of piety. 3. That they served Allah's servants not as a favor to them but as their own duty and their right due from them. Here, one should also know and understand another thing. The right of the needy ones that has been mentioned here in the wealth of the believers does not imply the zakat, which has been imposed as religious duty on them. But this is the right that a well-to-do believer himself feels there is in his possessions of the needy even after he has paid off the zakat, and he discharges it willingly even if it has not been made obligatory by the Sharia. Ibn Abbas, Mujahid, Zayd bin Aslam and other scholars have understood this very meaning of this verse. In fact, the real spirit of this divine command is that a pious and virtuous person is never involved in the misunderstanding that he has become relieved of his duty of discharging the right of Allah and His servants that there was in his possessions after he has paid the zakat, and now he is not bound to help every needy and destitute person whom he comes across. Contrary to this, every servant of Allah, who is really pious and righteous, remains ever ready to do whatever good he can do willingly, does not let slip any opportunity when he could do some good to the people in the world. He is not of the way of thinking that he has done whatever good he had been enjoying to do and now no more good is required to be done by him. The one who has recognized the true value of goodness does not perform it as a burden but tries to earn more and more of it, greedily as a bargain to his own advantage, in his own interest.
وفي الأرض آيات للموقنين.
There are many signs on earth for those of sure faith.
18. The signs imply those proofs which testify to the possibility and necessity of the hereafter. The earth's own body and its structure, its having been placed at a suitable distance from the sun at a particular angle, the arrangement of heat and light and of different seasons on it, the provision of air and water on it, and of countless different kinds of treasures in its belly, covering its surface with a fertile crest and causing to grow in it an endless variety of vegetables, generating countless races of the animals of the land and water and air, providing suitable food and proper conditions for the life of every species, creating and making available all those means and resources on it even before the creation of man, so as to meet and suit his ever-increasing needs in every stage of history as well as accord with the development of his civilization and way of living. These and countless other signs can be seen in the earth and its surroundings by every discerning eye. The case of the one who has closed the doors of his heart to belief and faith is different. He will see in these everything else but not any sign that may point to the reality. But an unprejudiced person who has an open mind will never form the idea after observing these signs that all this has come about as the result of an accidental explosion that had occurred suddenly in the universe millions of years ago. He will rather be convinced that this wise and perfect work of art is the creation of an omnipotent and omniscient God, and that God who has made this earth cannot be helpless to resurrect man after death, nor can he be so unwise as to leave a sensible and intelligent being like man after granting him powers and authority to roam at will in his earth. The fact that man has been granted powers and authority by itself demands that he should be accountable, otherwise it would be against wisdom and justice, and the Creator's being all-powerful, omnipotent, is by itself a proof that after the human species has fulfilled its function in the world, he can raise all its members back to life and gather them together from wherever they are lying dead in the earth for the purpose of accountability.
وَفِي أَنفُسِكُمْ أَفَلَا تُبْصِرُونَ.
And also in your own selves, do you not see?
19. That is, you may not look outside yourself. Look within your own self, and you will find countless signs testifying to the same truth. You will see how your creation was begun by combining a microscopic sperm with a microscopic egg in a corner of the mother's body, how you were blessed with a body of unique structure and a self endowed with wonderful powers and abilities, how you were brought out from the dark world of your mother's womb, as soon as your structure became complete, into this vast world, equipped with an automate machine within yourself, which goes on functioning by itself from the day you take birth till your maturity and old age, to assimilate food, produce blood and circulate it in the veins, discharge waste matter, prepare new parts in place of the wasted and worn-out parts of the body, resisting the internal and the external hazards to the body and compensating for the losses, even for sending you to peaceful sleep after exhaustion, without any effort required to be made by you towards these basic needs of life. A wonderful brain has been placed under your skull in whose complicated layers lies filled an invaluable wealth of intellect, thought, imagination, consciousness, discrimination, will, memory, desire, feeling and emotions, inclinations and trends, and other mental abilities. You have been provided with numerous means of knowledge which supply you with every kind of informational through the eye, nose, cars and skin. You have been given the tongue and the power of speech by which you can express your thoughts and feelings. And then your ego has been placed as a ruler over the entire kingdom of your body so that it may employ all the powers and abilities and form opinions and decide as in what ways you have to spend and employ your time and labor and efforts, what you have to reject and what you have to accept, what should be your objective in life and what you should shun and avoid. Thus equipped when you were brought into the world, you saw what provisions had been made ready here for your nourishment, development, and the progress and perfection of yourself by virtue of which you reached a particular stage of life when you became able to use the powers and authority you had been endowed with. For using these powers you were given means in the earth, provided with opportunities, and given ability to control and employ many of the things as you pleased. You had all the ways of disbelief and faith, sin and obedience, justice and injustice, good and evil, truth and falsehood, open before you. There were those who invited to each of these ways and there were the means to lead to each one of them. Whoever among you selected one particular way did so on his own responsibility, for he had the power to decide and choose endowed in himself. Depending on the choice made by each one and taking advantage of the opportunities thus afforded of employing his powers of will and intention, someone became a good man and another a bad man. Someone adopted the way of belief and faith and another the way of disbelief, polytheism or atheism. Someone withheld himself from unlawful desires, and another did whatever he wanted in obedience to his self. Someone became an oppressor and another the oppressed. Someone carved out his duties and another usurped the rights of others. Someone continued to do good till his last breath, another went on committing evil till his last moment of lift. Someone exerted himself to raise the word of the truth, another went on oppressing the followers of the truth in order to cause falsehood to flourish. Now can a person, unless he is absolutely blind and senseless, say that a being such as this has appeared on the earth just by an accident? That there is no wisdom and no plan working behind his creation? That the storms that he is raising on the earth are without a purpose and will end up without entailing any consequence? That there will be no reward for a good act and no punishment for an evil act? And that injustice will not be redressed and the unjust will not be brought to book? Such things may be said by a person who has lost his reason, or by the one who is resolved not to acknowledge at all the wisdom of a wise being working behind the creation of man. But an unprejudiced, sensible person cannot help but admit that the creation of man, the powers and abilities he has been given, and the position he has been granted here, is certainly a grand, wise plan, and the wisdom of the God whose plan it is, inevitably demands that man should be questioned about his actions and deeds. And it cannot be right to entertain the doubt about the powers of God that he will not be able to recreate man whom he has brought up to this noble position of honor from a mere microscopic cell.
وَفِي السَّمَاءِ رِزْقُكُمْ وَمَا تُوعَدُونَ.
And in heaven is your provision, and also what you are being promised.
20. By the heaven here is meant the heavens, by provision, all that man is given for his survival and functioning in the world, and by that which you are promised, resurrection, gathering together, accountability, meting out of rewards and punishments, and hell and heaven, which have been foretold and promised in all divine books and now in the Quran. The verse means to say, the decisions, as to who should be given what and how much in the world, are taken in heavens, and also the decision as to when should any of you be recalled for the purpose of accountability and dispensation of the rewards and punishments.
فَوَرَبِّ السَّمَاءِ وَالْأَرْضِ إِنَّهُ لَحَقٌّ مِثْلَ مَا أَنَّكُمْ تَنطِقُونَ.
So by the Lord of the heaven and the earth, this is certainly true as the fact of your speaking.
هل أتاك حديث ضيف إبراهيم المكرمين.
O Prophet, did the story of Abraham's honored guests reach you? Peace be upon them.
21. Now, from here to the end of verse 46, brief allusions have been made, one after the other, about Allah's prophets, and some of the nations of the past, which are meant to impress two things. First, that in human history God's law of retribution has been working constantly, in which precedents are found of the rewards for the righteous and of punishments for the wicked people continuously. This is a clear evidence of the fact that even in the life of this world the Creator's relationship with man is not merely based on the physical law but the moral law also is working side by aid with it. And when the temper of the kingdom of the universe is such that the creation which has been given an opportunity to act morally while living in a physical body, should not only be dealt with on the basis of physical laws, like animals and plants, but the moral law also should be applied to its moral acts. This by itself points to the truth that a time must come in this kingdom when on the completion of man's role in the physical world, full results of his moral acts should also appear strictly in accordance with the moral law because in the physical world they do not appear fully. The second thing that has been impressed by these historical allusions is that the nations which did not believe in the prophets of Allah and based the conduct and attitude in life on the denial of the oneness of Allah, the prophethood and the hereafter, were ultimately doomed to destruction. This continuous experience of history testifies that God's law of morality that was conveyed through the prophets, and on the basis of which man will be subjected to accountability in the hereafter, is entirely based on the truth. For whichever nation determined its conduct and attitude in the world independent of this law, considering itself irresponsible and unaccountable, has gone straight to its doom. 22. This story has been narrated at 3 places in the Quran, in Surah Hud, ayats 69 to 73, Surah Al-Hijr, ayats 51 to 56, and Surah Al-Ankabut, ayat 31.
Peace be upon them.
إذ دخلوا عليه فقالوا سلاما قال سلام قوم منكرون.
When they came to him, they said, Peace. He said, Peace also be to you. You seem to be a group of strangers.
23. In view of the context in which this sentence has occurred, it can have 2 meanings. 1. That the Prophet Abraham, peace be upon him, himself said to the guests, I have never had the chance to see you before, you are perhaps newcomers in this land. 2. That after responding to their salutation, the Prophet Abraham, peace be upon him, said these words to himself, or to his servants, while going inside the house for arranging the feast: they appear to be strangers, people of their noble nature and appearance have not been seen before in this land.